Hi, everybody. Welcome to Chee-Tash. My name is Chris, your host, and we are going to continue with our review, our analysis of The Alchemist. We left off last time, page 90, and for today, we're going to be discussing 90 through 110. Some interesting things happening in the story. I think where we left off, they had just made it to the Oasis. Remember, the Englishman is looking for the alchemist. Santiago has hopped aboard the caravan in order to cross the desert so he can get to Egypt. And from what the people told him in the caravan, I think specifically the caravan driver, is that the Oasis is on the way to Egypt. It's very, very close to it. So we have these two young men both going after their personal legend. Two different personal legends. Seems like Santiago comes from a very, I don't want to say poor background, but it's just the Englishman comes from, it seems like a very well-off background. It seems like he's well-educated, has a lot of books. Santiago came from a small village. He was a shepherd. He has trouble just getting through that one book that he has. Remember, he had that one book that he was trying to read when the old man, the Salem king, interrupted him. So it's like we have two different individuals here from two different backgrounds, both trying to get to their personal legend. It's almost like Paulo, the author, is trying to tell us, hey, everybody's got a personal legend no matter what your background is. You all have that thing to chase, whether you're a shepherd, whether you are a educated Englishman, whatever have you. So that's kind of where we left off. Let's start this. So like I said, the caravan finally makes it to the Oasis. And they've been traveling through this desert, super, super silent, super big. And remember the conversation that Santiago has with the camel driver. It's like you realize how small you are compared to the desert, that all you can do, your only reaction to that is to keep silent. And just kind of take in the fact that take in the breadthness and the depthness of the desert. It's kind of like if you look at the stars, you have a tendency not to really talk because you realize, hey, there's more out there. There's a ton more out there, and I'm just this little speck on this little marble that's moving around at millions of miles an hour around another little ball, or bigger marble being the sun. You know what I'm trying to say. So the desert, very, very big. Very, very big. They've probably been traveling for a while. And they make it to the Oasis, where how I introduced this with the silence that you feel you have to maintain while traveling through the desert. In the Oasis, that is not the thing. In the Oasis, it seems like this has got the character of like a regular city, like a big city. There's a hustle and bustle to it. Santiago made a comment that there's no more silence once they hit the Oasis. And there's tents, there's lots of people, trees. I'm sure there's animals, there's wells where they get water. And they finally make this transition into this Oasis. This is where the alchemist is going to be. So lots of people around. There's bound to be an alchemist here. And I think there is an alchemist here. Remember, we had this little blurb about it previously in 70 through 90, where they cut to the alchemist saying, oh, there's somebody in this caravan who I need to talk to. So I believe the alchemist is there. That is what I believe. That's what the Englishman believes too. So hopefully we find this gentleman. Some other important things of note: neutral territory. The Oasis is seen as neutral territory. Remember, there was kind of like drums of warfare that were talked about previously. We kind of talked about last time. And those drums, I think, are beating even louder. But the good thing about the Oasis is that there's not really supposed to be any fighting going on there. That's seen as neutral territory. There's lots of women and children there. In fact, I think they said mostly women and children there. So they get out. They have probably been traveling for a while. They need a rest. They need to get their bearings straight. The Englishman has to do his thing. He's got to do his due diligence. And the caravan leader just has a couple bits of instructions that the Oasis has a law of hospitality, so that they will be taken care of. That's kind of the law of the land. Treat your guests right. They will not leave the Oasis until the warfare subsides. So we've heard a lot about the warfare, but we haven't seen any warfare really yet. And then they are to hand over all their weapons. And this is where we get a nice little surprise that the Englishman hands over a gun. That could have been some information that you could have maybe shared with somebody, shared with Santiago that he had a gun, and Santiago's kind of surprised by it. And the Englishman makes a comment saying that, the gun has helped him to trust in people. That's kind of interesting. Has it helped him to trust in people, or has helped other people to subvert to him and to trust him? Right? Is it the other way around? And is there something that we still don't really know about this Englishman? Just a gun out of nowhere. I feel like there's something that's got to be. There's more to this guy than meets the eye, I think. Let's continue. Santiago has a realization here, whilst in the camp. He realizes that the closer that he gets to his dream or legend, personal legend, the more difficult things become. And he's starting to notice that maybe his beginner's luck that the Salem King kind of talks about, that the same beginner's luck that he uses while he's with the crystal merchant, maybe that is beginning to run out on him. Again, it's right in the name. It's beginner's luck. When you're in the beginning of any sort of task, there's going to be a lot of luck on your side. God will be on your side when you're just starting out. He wants you to realize your personal legend, but obviously when it's not the beginning anymore, it's almost like the burden, the journey, the responsibility shifts now more so onto your shoulders. It's not that God's going away, but now it's more so up to you. And Santiago is starting to think here, okay, he thinks he's got to be a little more patient. He doesn't want to be hasty. All right. He doesn't want to miss any omens that come his way. Again, we go back to the story that the Salem King told Santiago about the oil and the spoon. You want to be cognizant of everything around you, but never forget about the oil and the spoons. You don't want to miss those omens, right? Because the omens are the things that God shows you. They're the things that God tells you, God shows you in order to point you in a direction. The good omens mean that you are going in the right direction. And I remember there's a quote from John Wooden that I have here: be quick, but not in a hurry. And I remember Gary Vaynerchuk, entrepreneur, author Gary Vaynerchuk, I remember him saying something similarly to the point of you should be patiently impatiently patient or patiently impatient. So like in the short term, be super, super busy, like always be doing something, but long term, be patient, but in the short term, be impatient, if that makes sense. Eat when it's time to eat. It's what the caravan driver told Santiago, I eat when it's time to eat. I eat what's in front of me, and then I focus on the next thing. Don't be in such a hurry to just move forward, pay attention to the future when it's the present that's right in front of you. And we're gonna get more on that topic a little bit later. So the Englishman, obviously, he's searching for the alchemist. He requests Santiago's help in this matter. It's a big oasis from the description of it. Lots of people. And he realizes that, okay, we need let's split up, gang, here, and split this up in half. If you can help me out asking people, I'm going to ask people, maybe we can find this alchemist a little bit faster. So how are they going to do this? Well, at first, the Englishman doesn't want to tell people. He doesn't want to ask people about it because he doesn't want to let people know about it. So this is kind of interesting because Santiago does the same thing. He doesn't really tell a lot of people about his personal legend, or he tries not to. Or when he does tell people about his personal legend, instantly he kind of regrets it. But eventually the Englishman says, okay, if we're going to really get anywhere, we got to ask people about the alchemist. I know I want to keep it to myself, but this is the only way. This is what I came here to do. I'm going to have to make a compromise here. So eventually he gives in to this. They start asking around. People are, they have some interesting responses to him. I remember one guy, they ask one gentleman, like, hey, do you know where there's a guy here that can solve some issues? I'm trying to find it. They just get some interesting responses from the people when they start asking them. This is where a breakthrough comes in. And the Englishman realizes, okay, maybe we're asking the wrong questions. We're asking people if they know where an alchemist is, assuming that they know what an alchemist is. Right? So now they switch up their question. They're asking, hey, is there a person here that cures illnesses? Because it sounds like that's one of the duties, that's one of the things that an alchemist can do. So they switch up their question. They're asking the wrong questions. How many times do you go in life asking a wrong question? Or asking questions that get you answers that you don't want? You got to switch up the question. Maybe get a better answer out of it. This is where, so earlier, this is what I was talking about with a interesting response from the individuals of the Oasis when they ask one of these elderly gentlemen, and they ask him, do you know where someone is who cures people's illnesses? And the guy says, Allah cures our illnesses. You're looking for witch doctors. And the guy just kind of goes away. Looking for witch doctors. Nope, they're just looking for the alchemist. So, strike one. That's okay. They struck out swinging. They go to another guy. This guy's a little bit more helpful. He says on page 95. There we go. We'll get to this. Santiago falls in love in a second. Page 95. If such a man is here at the Oasis, he must be the very powerful one. Not even the tribal chieftains are able to see him when they want to, only when he consents, Wait for the end of the war, then leave with the caravan. Don't try to enter into the life of the Oasis. And he walks away. Powerful words. So he doesn't really tell him where he is, but he does say, give him kind of like a warning. A little bit. Gives him a little bit of a warning. Don't seek it out. Leave with the caravan. You don't want to be stuck here when it comes time for the war. Or wait till the end of the war, then just leave. So Santiago is doing his duty too. He's trying to ask people. And he comes to a girl. Finds himself at like I'm guessing like a well. And a girl walks up. This is still page 95. And instantly he falls in love with this girl. Girl smiles at him. He believes it's an omen. He's like instantly attracted to her. He finds out her name is Fatima. And he tells her that he's basically going to wait at the well for her every single day. And she's only there for like a few minutes. They don't like converse that long. And I just have one question here. It seemed like earlier in the story, Santiago was all about this merchant's daughter. Now, this girl comes along. He completely forgot about the merchant's daughter. It seems like he was so enamored with the merchant's daughter, but then compared to this lady, young girl, Fatima, like you can just look at the description. There's so much more written here. Like he goes into the language, it's pure language of the world. The only language all humans can understand is love. He looked into her dark eyes. Like he goes into so much more of a description with this young lady compared to the merchant's daughter. It seems like he is really fallen in love with this girl. Crazy. He just forgets about the merchant's daughter like that. It's also kind of been a while. And he doesn't even have any sheep anymore to get sheared by the merchant, so he kind of has moved forward. Let's continue on. The Englishman finally finds the alchemist. So their plan of talking to people, gathering information, worked out. The Englishman finally finds this alchemist. On page 98, Santiago talks to him. And you get the feeling in the words that something's not right here. Englishman is way too disappointed. This was his personal legend to find this alchemist. Well, I think we got to be clear a little bit. His personal legend, yes, he wanted to find the alchemist, but he wanted to find the alchemist for a specific reason. He wanted to know the secrets. And he thought that the alchemist would tell him that. So when the Englishman finds him and asks him, how do I turn lead into gold? How can I perform this task that the alchemists have the power to do? And the alchemist only asks him, actually, this is, again, page 98. I told him what I was seeking, and he asked me if I had ever transformed lead into gold. I told him that's what I had come here to learn. And he told me I should try to do so. That's all he said. Go and try. And that's it. And he's frustrated because he's already tried so many times. He thought that the alchemist would kind of help him out a little bit more, but he didn't. Or did he? Maybe he did help him. See, because I think the alchemist kind of does help him out in a way here. As I write here on the slides, the Englishman was looking for a secret, but there really is no secret. Or I think, okay, maybe there is a secret, but it's nothing special. Go and do. Go and do it. Eventually, if you push the right buttons, you try the right formulas, you'll get it. Again, this is something we've repeated throughout when we were going through Man's Search for Meaning. I didn't say it'd be easy. Same thing Morpheus tells Neo when he's showing him what the Matrix is. I didn't say it'd be easy. I only said it'd be the truth. So I'm not saying this is going to be easy. I'm not saying you're going to get it in a day. But you will get it if you put in the time, put in the work. If that's what your personal legend is, put in the time, it'll happen. And so oftentimes, like, we think that we are doing things wrong, and maybe that's what the Englishman thought. That's why he needed to seek out the alchemist. Like, what am I doing wrong? I need this expert to tell me what I'm doing wrong. And he seemingly lacks confidence a little bit. And he's thinking that his failures or his many attempts at turning lead into gold are failures. Well, Thomas Edison said that, somebody said that Thomas Edison failed. He tried 1,000 times and failed to make a light bulb. And he said, well, I didn't fail 1,000 times. I just found 1,000 ways on how not to make a light bulb. So it's perspective. But man, don't you got to be disappointed if you're the Englishman a little bit. Anyways, Fatima returns back to the well. Santiago's there waiting for her. Santiago, this time he tells her that he loves her. And now Santiago sounds like where's his head at here? Because he tells her he loves her and he's willing to give up his treasure for her. But he hasn't even really seen this girl. How does he even know that he's compatible with her? And I get it, this is a novel. This is, not exactly how things happen in real. I'm sure they happen in real life like this, but he hasn't seen her that much. He only sees her when she fills up his vessel. And I asked the question, why doesn't he get to know her more, follow her back to her family, meet her family and such? I don't know. Maybe it's the customs. Again, this is a different world than where he comes from. Maybe the customs are different with men and women, possibly. But he's willing to give up his treasure for her, his personal legend, the thing that he already traveled so far, gave up his sheep, got his money stolen, traveled across the desert. He's going to give it up for this girl. I mean, maybe the girl was his treasure all along. I don't know. Fatima straightens him out a little bit, though. A little bit. He's starting to think, maybe that's a good thing that the war is going on. We're going to be stuck here at the Oasis. More time to get to know Fatima. Right? The war is going to go on for a while. It's not a war of good versus evil. It's a war of, as they say on page 99, a balance of power. And when it's these kinds of wars, Allah's on both sides. So they're going to be there for a while. We continue on. Fatima tells Santiago, I want you to go pursue your legend. Maybe that's what makes Santiago so attractive to Fatima. Or maybe Fatima just doesn't want to hold him back. She realizes she knows about omens. She knows about everybody has their personal legend that they have to pursue. She's akin to it. She doesn't want to stop Santiago from that. I think she cares for him. And she tells him, if we were meant to be, when you'll come back one day and it'll work itself out. We're going to let the chips fall where they may. But you should not neglect your personal legend. She says that the desert takes our men from us and don't always return. We know that. We are used to it. Those who don't return become part of the clouds. So she's used to this. Maybe she's had family members or other women in the Oasis kind of deal with similar situations with men. Go pursue your legend. Achieve it. If you come back, we'll pick up right where we left off. Thank God. Smack some sense into Santiago. Go pursue your personal legend, man. Let's continue. The Englishman, we come back to the Englishman. The Englishman has started his task. On page 102, he's trying it out. And he says that this is the first phase of the job, he said. I have to separate out the sulfur. To do that successfully, I must have no fear of failure. It was my fear of failure that first kept me from attempting the masterwork. Now I'm beginning what I could have started 10 years ago, but I'm happy at least that I didn't wait 20 years. There's an old saying that the best time to plant a tree was 30 years ago, and the next best time is today. So the Englishman has a positive perspective on this. He started on the next best time. You know what the third best, you know what the worst time to start would be? Like next week. Because already you're a week behind. Based on the information that you already learned today, you start next week, well, you're a week behind schedule in a sense. Not that there is a schedule really, but you know, why put off work tomorrow, which you can do today, basically. So it's this fear of failure. You know, I get this a lot too in my life where I'm so afraid of making mistakes that I just don't even try. This happens when I code a lot. It's like I'm so afraid of making the mistake in the program not running. I just kind of like freeze up and I don't want to change anything, especially when something's working and then I figure out, there's probably a better way to do this, but I just don't want anything to break. It's so nice right now. It's working. It's running. But I know that's not going to help me grow. I know that's not what's best for my program, app, website that I'm making. So good for the Englishman for realizing this. We come to an interesting scene here. Another omen. And Santiago sees two hawks flying high in the sky. And he's kind of wondering about them a little bit. You know, let's see what he says here. They're drifting in the wind. Their flight doesn't really have a pattern. And he's just kind of wondering about them. Maybe these desert birds could explain to him the meaning of love without ownership. Interesting thing to say right before one of the birds attacks the other. Kind of out of the blue. Santiago wasn't expecting it. And Santiago has a vision. a fleeting image, and the image is of an army with its swords at the ready, riding into the Oasis. This could be characterized as probably an omen, probably a bad omen. Maybe a positive omen, but I'm kind of thinking a bad omen. Interestingly enough, they are riding into the Oasis, a place that the caravan driver said is a place of neutrality. No war takes place here. But his vision shows an army, swords, guns blazing, maybe not guns, but they're coming in ready to attack into the Oasis. And Santiago is a little frightened, doesn't know what to think about this omen that has come into his mind. So he goes to share it with the camel driver. This is on page 104. And he kind of tells him, hey, what should I do with this? I've had this vision. I don't know what to do. Give me some advice here. And the camel driver kind of tells him, okay, kind of calms him down a little bit. Okay. And he says this on page 104, towards the bottom. The camel driver understood what the boy was saying. He knew that any given thing on the face of the earth could reveal the history of all things. One could open a book to any page, or look at a person's hand. One could turn a card or watch the flight of birds. Whatever the thing observed, one could find a connection with his experience of the moment. Actually, it wasn't that those things in themselves revealed anything at all. It was just that people, looking at what was occurring around them, could find a means of penetration to the soul of the world. So he's kind of telling him, what is he kind of telling him here? That, like, somebody else could have looked at those two hawks. Somebody else could have had that same vision and had a completely different reaction to it, maybe. Again, perspective. People use that vision for different things. It's not that the vision is trying to connect. The vision is trying to show you something in the present that has to do with your life. It's that the vision is trying to show you a means to penetrate the soul of the world. And what was the soul of the world again? This is going back to something that we discussed last time. Let me see if I can find the page. Page 82. The Englishman describes this. That's the principle that governs all things, he says. In alchemy, it's called the soul of the world. When you want something with all your heart, that's when you are closest to the soul of the world. It's always a positive force. And then here, the caravan driver says, looking at what was occurring around them, could find a means of penetration to the soul of the world. So Santiago is seemingly thinking this vision is negative. The vision is a ways of penetrating to the soul of the world. The soul of the world, according to the Englishman, is something that's a positive force. Principle that governs all things. So we kind of have an oxymoron here. Like, what does the vision really represent? The caravan driver doesn't really tell Santiago that it's negative. He kind of calms him down about it. The vision in itself is not revealing anything to you. You got to go and talk to these seers. They could penetrate to the soul of the world. They'll tell you what the vision really means. And the caravan driver had a experience with the seer that he kind of shares with Santiago here. And he says that the seers guess the future. They guess the future. They don't know the future. God is the only one that knows the future. But the seers guess the future by using the omens. And the camel driver goes to the seer so he can see the future, so he can change the future. And the seer kind of tells him some interesting things. I want to see the future. I want to change the future. But then they wouldn't be a part of your future, the seer tells the camel driver. Well, maybe I just want to know the future so I can prepare myself for what's coming, the camel driver asked the seer. And this is what he's telling Santiago. The seer says, if good things are coming, they will be pleasant. If bad things are, and you know in advance, you will suffer greatly before they even occur. So this guy's trying to tell him you can't really change the future. Well, you can. It's called improving on the present. If you improve the present, you can improve the future. And I'm not going to be able to tell you exactly what's going to happen. God does that through the omens. He reveals the future so that it may be altered. Gives you an option, it seems like. Right? Because when things are going really good, you barely question anything. But then as soon as you start to question things, you start to think, you start to give yourself those options, right? Is this what I should do? Is this what I should do? But no, when things are rolling, you're not looking for any alternatives. You're on a roll and you know the future, you know things are going in a positive way. This is kind of a tough section. Hopefully things get more clear in these next coming pages, because the camel driver ultimately, he calms Santiago down. He tells him about these seers. He tells him his experience with the seers. After all of that, he's going to instruct the boy to go to the tribal chieftains and tell them what he saw. And I don't think the tribal chieftains are necessarily seers, but they are the people, I guess, it sounds like they run the Oasis. So he's going to go tell them. He goes to the tribal chieftains. They're in this great, great tent, probably the equivalent of maybe like a gated off community mansion if you were like in a more suburban area. But they're in this great tent, beautiful inside. He describes lights, gold. It seems like it's very well kept. And there's 8 chieftains. One of the guys brings them inside to 8 chieftains. And one of the chieftains stands out as the most important one. This is the one that's dressed in white and gold. Stands out amongst all the other chieftains. Santiago tells him his vision. And instantly, they are kind of questioning him. They're uncertain of Santiago's credibility here. They don't really know who he is. They don't know why he would have this vision. This is on page 108, 109. Who is this stranger who speaks of omens? Asked one of the chieftains. Why would the desert reveal such things to a stranger when it knows that we have been here for generations? Santiago says that maybe it's because I don't come from the desert, and when I see things, they are with fresh eyes. basically, is what he kind of tells them. My eyes are not yet accustomed to the desert. I can see things that eyes habituated to the desert might not see. Kind of a fair point. And also because I know about the soul of the world, he thought to himself. And again, one of the chieftains says, the Oasis is neutral ground, something that we learned about earlier. No one attacks it. And then the men start talking to each other, probably in Arabic, because Santiago doesn't really say anything about what they're saying. And on 110, yes, they are speaking in Arabic. He wants to leave, then the guys tell him no. The guards tell him to stay. So they're talking in Arabic. He doesn't know what they're saying. Maybe flashbacks of that bartender yelling at him in Arabic back when he met the newcomer. He's kind of flustered. He's fearful. He can't leave. The omens told him that something was wrong. He regretted having spoken to the camel driver about what he had seen in the desert. Seems like, and I wrote here, if this is a tense situation, if chieftains are kind of plotting something right now from the information that Santiago told them. Santiago's a little fearful, and he doesn't normally like to talk to people about like personal things. It seems like, right? He doesn't really tell people about his personal legend, as an example. I think the situation has yet to reveal it if it's a tense situation, if this is something that Santiago needs to be worried about. Santiago is getting worked up about it, yes, but it might be all for nothing. And we'll find out next time if it's all for nothing. This is actually the last page here, page 110. So that concludes our episode for today. Yeah, what do you guys think will happen? What is going to happen when we come back next episode with this little meeting with the tribal chieftains? Is a war going to break out? Do you think a war will break out? What's going to happen with Fatima? What's going to happen with the Englishman? Is he going to keep trying to turn lead into gold? Is Santiago ever going to get to the pyramids? Are they going to be stuck in this oasis? But the big thing is, will his vision come true, basically? I don't know. We'll find out next time. Guys, thank you very much if you made it this far. Thank you very much for listening. Even if you didn't, thank you very much for just checking this out. For next time, let's read pages 110 through 130. And let's come back next week. Story's getting good. Again, pages 110 through 130. I will see you all next week. My name is Chris Lazar. Have a great rest of the day. This has been Chee-Tash.